Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Let's do it.
Today, we're taking a closer look at a psychology study. Pretty famous one.
Ah, yeah, I think I know what's coming.
Yeah, the Stanford Prison Experiment. You've probably heard of it, maybe even learned about it back in school.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's one of those that really sticks with you.
Right. But here's the thing. There's some newer information out there that kind of changes things.
Oh, like what? I'm intrigued.
So we're going to get into all that today. But first,
Oh.
got to set the stage. Picture it. Summer 1971.
Okay, got it.
Stanford University.
Yeah.
A group of, college guys, they signed up for this study, right? And they think it's about, like, prison life.
Okay, yeah, I remember that part, the whole, prisoner guard dynamic.
Exactly. So they randomly assign these guys as either prisoners or guards.
Right.
And get this, it all goes down in this, like, makeshift prison.
In a basement.
Yeah, in the basement of a building at Stanford. Wild, right?
They really committed to the whole immersive experience, didn't they?
Yeah, they really tried to make it feel real.
Wait, didn't they like actually have police officers involved? Like to make it even more real?
Oh, yeah. They had actual police officers arrest the participants who were assigned as prisoners.
Wow.
Like, they picked them up from their homes and the whole thing.
So they really wanted to get these guys, in the mindset.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's where things start to get, well, pretty dark.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to forget the stories that came out of that experiment.
Right. They started using all these, like, psychological tactics on the prisoners, even humiliation.
Right. And the conditions in that makeshift prison, I mean, they were rough, right?
Oh, terrible. Like, they had to use a bucket for waste.
Yeah. It just got out of control so quickly.
And then, you've got one prisoner having a mental breakdown. Another guy goes on a hunger strike. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's intense stuff. It's understandable why the experiment had to end early.
They were only supposed to go for 2 weeks, but they shut it down after 6 days.
6 days,
Because
yeah.
it was just, too much.
Yeah, too much, too much.
So for years and years, everyone thought this experiment proved something about human nature.
Yeah, like a fundamental flaw, right?
Yeah, like people are just naturally susceptible to the corrupting power of power,
Right. Anyone can become a tyrant, basically.
Exactly. It became like this huge cautionary tale.
It really shaped how we think about, things like prison reform and even just the nature of evil.
But okay, here's where it gets kind of crazy.
Oh, really? I'm ready.
So all this talk about human nature, it might not be the whole story.
Wait, so what are you saying?
Forever, we only had a little bit of information about this Stanford Prison Experiment.
Okay, yeah.
But recently, researchers got their hands on a bunch of new stuff.
New stuff. Like what?
The full archive of the experiment. Like everything.
Wow.
And there's audio recordings.
Recordings of what? Like
Yeah.
of the experiment itself?
Of the researchers and the participant.
I can't even imagine what's on those.
And the recordings, they paint a different picture, a very different picture.
Okay, you gotta tell me more. Like what kind of different picture are we talking about?
Remember how the guards, they got so bad so quickly.
Yeah. Like it was shocking how fast things escalated.
It seems like they weren't just acting on their own.
What do you mean?
The recordings.
Yeah.
They show the researchers actually encouraged the guards to be more aggressive.
Hold on, wait. They encouraged them like to be more forceful with the prisoners.
Yeah. To be tougher, to exert more control.
Yeah.
It's all right there on the recordings.
So it wasn't just people, naturally falling into those roles. Like
Right.
there was actual guidance.
Yeah, there was manipulation going on.
Wow. I mean that's huge. That changes the whole story.
It does. It really does. They weren't just observing this, natural human behavior.
Right. They were influencing it.
They were shaping it.
I need an example. Like what were they saying?
So on one of the recordings, there's this guard, right? And he sounds kind of hesitant
Hesitant about what?
about, being so tough on the prisoners.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I would be too.
Right. And the experimenter, he actually pressures the guard.
Oh, okay. That's getting into some ethically questionable territory.
For sure. And he tells him, like, we want to get you active and involved. Like, we need you to be a tough guard.
Wow. So they're directly telling him to be more aggressive.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it gets worse. He even says to the guard, react as you picture the pigs reacting.
The pigs. He actually said that.
Yep.
Wow. It's like he's encouraging the guard to embrace a negative stereotype. That's really disturbing.
Yeah, right.
So how much of the guard's behavior was really them, and
Right.
how much was like influenced by the researchers?
Exactly. That's the question.
I mean, if the guards were being manipulated, if they were being coached, can we really say anything about human nature?
I don't know.
It almost feels like they were trying to manufacture the results they wanted.
Right. Like they weren't really observing. They were creating.
Yeah, it really makes you think twice about everything we thought we knew about the experiment.
So what are we supposed to believe now?
It's not about dismissing the experiment entirely, but about putting it in the right context. Like, yeah, this manipulation happened and we have to factor that in. It's not this perfect example of, the dark side of human nature that we thought it was.
I mean, the Stanford Prison Experiment is so famous. This changes everything.
It does. It really does. And it highlights something we often overlook. The power of leadership. Like the language that the experimenters used, the expectations they set, it all had a huge impact on the guards.
But wait, what about Christina Maslach? She was a researcher, but she called out all the problems.
Oh, yeah. She was so important. She came in to evaluate the study and she was like, this is wrong. Like she was appalled by what she was seeing.
Yeah, she played a huge role in stopping the experiment.
Exactly. And it shows that not everyone just, went along with it. She had her own values and she stuck to them.
And there was even one guard who didn't mistreat the prisoners.
Right. He managed to, keep his own principles even in that crazy environment.
It's almost like even in this controlled situation, even with all this manipulation going on, people still had choices.
Yeah, it wasn't just blind obedience,
So the Stanford Prison Experiment, it still has something to teach us, right?
For sure. But maybe not the lessons we thought.
Right, exactly. So where do we go from here? If roles aren't everything, then what is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. But the experiment, it does point to some answers.
Since, like, we're looking at this experiment and we're like, wait a minute, there's more to this story.
Yeah. It's more complicated than just saying, oh, people naturally fall into these roles and become cruel.
So what are we supposed to take away from all of this?
Well, I think one big takeaway is that leadership matters. Like, a lot.
Okay, yeah, we touched on that. The experimenters, they weren't just passively watching. They were actively shaping what was happening.
Right. Their words, their actions, even just their presence, it all influenced the guards.
So if leadership can be used to, kind of manipulate people into doing bad things, could it also be used to get them to do good things?
Absolutely. And I think that's actually one of the most important lessons we can take from this whole thing.
Like leaders have this huge responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. If a leader creates an environment where, certain behaviors are encouraged or rewarded, people are more likely to follow along.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just about the individual. It's about the context they're in and the people who are leading them.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to choose our leaders wisely, to think about the kind of environment they're creating and the messages they're sending.
Right. Because those messages, they have power.
Yeah, they really do. And I think the Stanford Prison Experiment, even with all its flaws, it shows us just how powerful those messages can be.
So maybe the real takeaway here isn't about, some inherent darkness in human nature.
Right.
It's about understanding the power of the situation and the people who are shaping that situation.
I think that's a great way to put it. We're not just products of our roles. We're influenced by a whole bunch of factors, including leadership.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. And honestly, it's kind of unsettling to think about.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think. And, I hope it encourages people to be a little more critical, a little more skeptical of, easy answers and simple explanations.
Especially when it comes to power dynamics.
Oh, absolutely. We all have a role to play in shaping the world around us. And I think understanding these dynamics is a really important first step.
All right. Well, that was quite a journey. The Stanford Prison Experiment. More complicated than we thought.
Yeah, for sure. But a lot to learn from.
As always, a huge thank you to you for diving into this with me. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Keep those brains buzzing, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.